heat waves are on the rise. In fact, what is this heat wave? Who has defined the heat wave? And are there any warnings for the heat wave? Is heat wave a notified disaster in India? Are the various things that we need to talk about. If you look at the heat wave as a term, heat wave is nothing but it is a period of abnormally high temperatures more than the normal maximum for any given region is usually called as a heat wave. It is nothing but a period of abnormally high temperature for any given region which is higher than the maximum temperature of the region is usually called as a heat wave. If you look at heat waves are usually declared by Indian Meteorological Department, and it has various criteria in order to declare a heat wave. In fact, based on the physiographic conditions of the region, for plain regions, heat waves will be declared only if the temperature goes above 40 degrees centigrade. Whereas for the hilly areas, heat waves will be declared if the temperature of the region goes beyond 35 degrees. Whereas for the coastal regions, heat waves can be declared if the temperature goes beyond 37 degrees centigrade. In fact, apart from the physiographic condition, there is also a temperature criteria in order to declare a heat wave. If the maximum temperature of a particular region does not go beyond 40 degrees centigrade, and if the temperatures of the region have gone beyond nearly 5 to 6 degrees of the normal maximum temperature, then it is usually considered as heat wave. And if the temperature goes beyond 7 degrees centigrade for the region whose maximum temperature is not more than 40 degrees centigrade, then it will be considered as a severe heat wave. But there are some regions of India where the normal maximum temperature is itself above 40 degrees centigrade. So for the regions where the normal temperature is above 40 degrees centigrade, what they will do is they will look at the deviance from the normal maximum temperature. And if the deviance from the normal maximum temperature is to the tune of 4 to 5 degrees for the areas where the normal maximum temperature is already more than 40 degrees, then it will be considered as a heat wave. Or for the regions where the normal temperature is more than 40 degrees, if the temperature variance is greater than 6 degrees centigrade, then it would be usually considered as a severe heat wave. Whereas when the maximum temperatures themselves are beyond 45 degrees centigrade, and if the temperature goes beyond 45 degrees centigrade consecutively for 2 days and in at least 2 stations of the meteorological department, then it would be considered as a heat wave. And for the regions where the temperature is normally beyond 45 degrees centigrade, so if the temperature goes beyond 47 degrees centigrade continuously for 2 days in 2 meteorological stations, then it is usually considered as a severe heat wave. So these are the criteria under which Indian Meteorological Department declares a heat wave. In fact, there is a rising frequency of heat waves across the country, and the heat waves which usually used to occur between March to June are in fact extending their reach. Sometimes heat waves are seen in February itself. Sometimes the heat waves are seen much beyond June in the month of July too. This way, the heat waves zone is increasing. Then apart from the zone, the frequency of heat waves are also increasing, primarily because of climate change. And as the global action against global warming and climate change is failing, what we need to focus more on is we need to focus on adaptation. And when it comes to the adaptation measures, in India right now, heat wave is not considered to be a notified disaster under National Disaster Management Act of 2005. Why it is not considered as a notified disaster is, right now 13 notified disasters are present, and only for these disasters the funds of National Disaster Management Fund and State Disaster Response Fund, not Management Response Fund, that is NDRF and SDRF, are allocated to the notified disasters only. And if heat wave is also declared as a notified disaster, all the funds of NDRF and SDRF would be exhausted. Then along with that, for every death which occurs under a disaster, under the NDMA Act, there is a provision that for notified disasters, 4 lakh rupees compensation has to be paid. But if heat wave is declared as a notified disaster, sometimes it becomes very difficult for us to determine the cause of death whenever a person dies of heat wave. That is the reason why, okay, paying 4 lakh rupees compensation would become excessive burden on the central government. That is the reason why heat wave is not considered to be a notified disaster. Even though it is not a notified disaster, it is definitely a silent disaster. As if we look at the number of casualties in the year 2023, across the country, nearly 730 people died of heat wave. And this year, as the Indian Meteorological Department, okay, in fact, foresees higher temperatures, there might be more casualties too. So how to deal with these, okay, heat waves? First and foremost, what we need to think of is there is a need for some short-term and long-term measures. And if you look at the short-term measures, first and foremost, drinking water. Second one is varying or adjusting the work hours, primarily because if you adjust the work hours without working between 12 to 3 o'clock, then the chances of you getting affected by heat wave is going to come down. Then the third one is boosting hospital capacity. If you do these 3 short-term measures, then the possibility of casualties is going to come down. Then over and above that, the long-term measures that needs to be taken are, first and foremost, you should ensure that the buildings become green buildings. Their dependence on artificial electricity is less, primarily because during summer, the power consumption is becoming excessive, leading to grid collapse and failure, and this is also causing problems for people. Then over and above that, there is a need to map the heat islands and also avoid urban heat island effect by ensuring that enough green spaces are present so that the temperatures will not shoot up too much in heat pockets of urban areas. If we are able to take these kind of measures, then we can ensure that, okay, heat wave disasters might be reduced. And one thing that is fashionable among youth today is drinking, okay, the carbonated drinks during the heat waves, sir. If you observe it, the carbonated drinks, they in fact cause, after consuming them, even though you feel that your dehydration has been resolved, but carbonated drinks increase the dehydration of a person and increase the chances of heat stroke. So whenever a heat wave is happening, wear lighter color clothes. Then along with that, avoid crowded places. Then along with that, the third thing that you can do is you should drink more and more water, but not carbonated drinks or heat or hot drinks like tea or coffee. You should avoid during heat wave in order to save yourself from heat stroke. In fact, the Indian Meteorological Department, it has given a classification and a color code for the heat waves. So, in fact, the green code is supposed to be normal day, whereas the heat alert is yellow code, whereas the severe heat alert is orange code, and extreme heat alert is given a red code. In fact, this is a way to warn the people, and whenever the red code is in force, it is better to avoid going outside. Okay, so these are the things that we need to keep in consideration in order to face the heat waves, and we have discussed about the various criteria under which the IMD declares heat waves. Also, we have talked about. Thank you.
కాంపిటేటివ్ ఎగ్జామ్ సంబంధించి ప్రత్యేకంగా సివిల్ సర్వీసెస్ ఎగ్జామ్ సంబంధించి ఏ ఆప్షన్ చూస్ చేసుకోవాలి, ప్రిపరేషన్ ఎప్పుడు స్టార్ట్ చేయాలి, ఏ బుక్స్ రిఫర్ చేయాలి, ఇలాంటి డౌట్స్ ఉంటే CSBIS అకాడమీని కాంటాక్ట్ అవ్వచ్చు. దీనికి సంబంధించి నా పర్సనల్ అపాయింట్మెంట్ ఈ వీడియో పైన డిస్ప్లే అవుతున్న కాంటాక్ట్ నెంబర్కి ఫోన్ చేసి తీసుకోవచ్చు.